Have you ever felt that something's watching you, just beyond the reach of the night? There's something about the dead of night that awakens our deepest fears. It's when the world falls silent, shadows stretch longer, and the darkness seems alive. I went for my usual night run, but something was always waiting for me around every corner. I should have listened to Jen when she told me running at night was a bad idea. "Jeff, you're not 20 anymore," she'd say, rolling her eyes at my stubbornness. But I kept insisting it was the only time that worked with my schedule. The truth? I liked how the empty streets made me feel like I owned the whole damn city. Just me, my running shoes, and the quiet hum of streetlights. That was before I started seeing him. Or it. I'm still not sure. It began 3 weeks ago, during what should have been just another Tuesday night run. I'd mapped out my usual 5-mile route through the suburbs, timing it perfectly to hit my favorite stretch, the old railroad trail, right when my second wind typically kicked in. The March air was crisp, and a light fog had settled in, making the sodium lights cast weird, elongated shadows across the pavement. I was about 2 miles in, feeling that familiar burn in my calves, when I noticed something odd. There was a figure standing at the corner of Maple and Harrison, right where I usually make my turn toward the trail. Even from a distance, something seemed off about their posture. Too still, too rigid. But hey, I'm not one to judge. Could have been another night owl getting some fresh air. As I got closer, they started walking. Nothing unusual about that, right? Except they were walking in the exact direction I was planning to go. Still, I kept my pace steady. I'm 6'2" and built like a linebacker, though Jen likes to remind me I'm getting a bit soft around the middle. I wasn't about to let some random pedestrian throw off my routine. That's when things got weird. Every time I'd round a corner, they'd already be there, standing perfectly still, waiting. It wasn't possible. I was running at a decent clip and they were just walking, but somehow they were always ahead of me. I switched up my route, cutting through the park instead of taking the trail. My heart was pounding harder than usual, and not from the exercise. As I passed under the park's archway, I caught a better glimpse of them under the floodlights. They were wearing what looked like business attire, a dark suit maybe, but their proportions were wrong. Arms too long, neck bent at an unnatural angle. I picked up my pace, my shoes slapping against the concrete with increasing urgency. The fog was getting thicker now, and the streetlights created these perfect little halos of visibility. I'd lose sight of the figure in the darkness between lights, only to find them waiting in the next pool of illumination. My phone buzzed. Jen, checking in like she always does during my runs. I wanted to answer, to hear her voice, but I couldn't risk slowing down. Not now. The figure was getting closer with each encounter, and I swear their movements were becoming more deliberate. I cut through the elementary school parking lot, a shortcut I'd discovered during my daytime runs. Bad move. The security lights were motion-activated, creating this strobe-like effect as I ran. In one flash, the figure was at the far end of the lot. In the next, they were halfway closer. Another flash, even closer. I broke into a full sprint, abandoning any pretense of this being a normal training run. My lungs were burning, and my carefully maintained form had devolved into pure survival mode. I could hear footsteps behind me now, completely out of sync with my own. They'd sound close, then far, then impossibly close again. When I finally reached my street, I risked to look back. Nothing. Just empty sidewalk disappearing into fog. I doubled over, hands on my knees, gulping air. Maybe I'd imagined it all. Too many true crime podcasts during my workday, perhaps. Then my phone buzzed again. Another text from Jen. "You've been out longer than usual. Everything okay?" I checked my running app. What I thought had been a 45-minute panic-fueled sprint home had actually taken over 2 hours. 2 hours? That wasn't possible. I started typing a response when I noticed something reflected in my phone's screen. A dark figure in a suit, standing directly behind me, arms too long, neck bent wrong. "I'm currently at Jen's house across town. She didn't ask questions when I showed up at her door, drenched in sweat and shaking. Just made me some tea and let me use her shower. I've got a missed call from work. Apparently I never showed up this morning, but that can't be right. The sun is just setting now, and I could swear I just finished my run. My running app is still open. According to it, I'm still running. In fact, it shows me completing the same route over and over, each lap taking exactly 2 hours and 17 minutes. Maybe I should have listened to Jen about running at night. Never accept triple pay for midnight deliveries. I learned this the hard way. The smell hit me first. That sickly sweet odor seeping from the package in my passenger seat. 15 years of delivering packages, and I'd never filed a complaint about a suspicious item, but something about this one made my stomach turn. The manifest listed it as perishable goods, but after 3 hours in my climate-controlled van, it shouldn't have started leaking. I'm Mick Thompson, and this is my last delivery log. I need someone to know what happened on Route 23 last night. Maybe then they'll understand why I can't go back to work. Why I wake up screaming, clutching at my neck where those things touched me. It started like any other night shift. I picked up my route sheet from the depot at 6 p.m. Rory, the new dispatcher, caught my eye as I was loading up. "Hey Mick, got a special one for you tonight. Last drop-off. Customer paid triple for guaranteed delivery before midnight." I should have noticed how she wouldn't quite meet my eyes when she handed me the manifest. Should have paid attention to how her hand trembled slightly. But after thousands of deliveries, you stop looking for signs. You just do the job. The first few hours were routine. Downtown apartments, suburban homes, the occasional late-night business. The special delivery was scheduled for 11:30 p.m., 976 Bleakwood Road. I'd never heard of it, but my GPS showed it was way out past the old Miller farm, where the county road turns to gravel. The package itself was odd, about the size of a shoebox, wrapped in what looked like butcher paper, but with a waxy sheen. The shipping label was handwritten in this spidery script that made my eyes hurt if I looked at it too long. And there was that smell, like overripe fruit mixed with copper. At 11:15, I turned onto Bleakwood Road. The pavement ended, and my headlights caught nothing but dense forest on both sides. The GPS said I had 2 miles to go, but something felt wrong. The trees seemed to lean over the road, branches reaching down like grasping fingers. My van's headlights didn't penetrate the darkness like they should have. The smell from the package was getting worse. I cracked my window, but the night air was thick and humid, pressing against my skin like a wet blanket. My GPS started glitching, the screen flickering between my location and somewhere else, somewhere that looked like a tangled mass of roads that shouldn't exist. Finally, I saw it. A decrepit Victorian mansion looming out of the darkness, paint peeling like dead skin. 976 Bleakwood Road. The porch light was on, casting sickly yellow light across overgrown bushes. As I pulled into the circular driveway, my headlights swept across something that made my blood freeze. Dozens of delivery company stickers on the front door. FedEx, UPS, local carriers, some I'd never heard of, all marked delivered with dates going back years. I sat there for a moment, engine idling, staring at that door. Protocol said I needed a signature for this delivery. The package was pulsing now, I swear to God, like something inside was moving to a rhythm I couldn't quite hear. My phone showed 11:28 p.m. The manifest said midnight deadline. I could have driven away, should have driven away. But 15 years of perfect delivery records does something to a person. Creates a kind of pride that can be deadly. I grabbed the package, trying to ignore how warm it felt through my gloves. The porch steps creaked under my feet, and I swear they sounded like whimpers. Before I could knock, the door swung open. The woman in the doorway looked wrong. Not obviously wrong, but like someone had tried to draw a person from a description and gotten all the proportions slightly off. Her smile was too wide, her eyes too far apart.
"Mr. Thompson?"
she said, and my heart stopped. I hadn't told her my name.
"You're 2 minutes early. Perfect. They're so hungry."
That's when the package burst open in my hands. The butcher paper dissolved like wet tissue, revealing something that pulsed and writhed, and the smell, dear God, the smell, like every dead thing in the world had been collected in that box. I dropped it and ran. I don't remember getting back to my van, don't remember most of the drive home, but I remember the sound that followed me, a high, singing note that made my teeth vibrate and my vision blur. And I remember what the woman called after me.
"See you next time, Mr. Thompson. They always come back for a second delivery."
I quit my job this morning, told them I was done with night routes. But sitting here in my apartment, I can smell it again. That sickly sweet odor. And there's a package sitting by my door that I don't remember ordering. The label is written in that same spidery handwriting. It's addressed to our faithful delivery driver. I'm a night shift nurse who took the last train home. The time hasn't changed from 11:58 p.m. for the past hour. I should have known something was wrong when I saw the flickering lights at the station. They weren't just flickering, they were pulsing like a heartbeat made of fluorescent tubes. But when you're dead tired after a 14-hour shift at the hospital, your brain tends to dismiss these things. I'm Raquel Shen, and I've been taking the midnight train home for the past 3 years. Tonight would be different. Tonight would be the last time. The digital display showed 11:58 p.m., perfect timing. I adjusted my scrabs, which still had a small coffee stain from this morning's rush, and gripped my bag tighter. The platform was empty, which wasn't unusual for this hour. What was unusual was the silence. No distant rumble of approaching trains, no wind in the tunnels, not even the usual squeaking of rats. Just that rhythmic flickering above. When the train finally pulled in, it moved wrong. Instead of the usual screech of metal on metal, it slid in almost silently, like a snake gliding through water. The doors opened with a soft hiss, revealing an interior lit by dim yellowish lights. Empty, except for one old man in the far corner, his face hidden behind a newspaper. Get off at the next stop, my gut screamed. But the next station was 3 miles from my apartment, and I had another shift in 7 hours. Just 4 stops, I told myself. 20 minutes, tops. I chose a seat in the middle car, keeping my distance from both the old man and the other empty cars. The doors closed, and we started moving. That's when I noticed the first really wrong thing. There was no conductor announcement. No stand clear of the closing doors, no station listings, nothing. I pulled out my phone to distract myself. No signal, of course. But what made my heart skip was the time. 11:58 p.m., the same time as when I'd checked at the platform. I looked at my watch. Also 11:58 p.m. That's impossible. I'd been on the train for at least 2 minutes. The old man hadn't moved. His newspaper hadn't rustled once. Was he even breathing? We passed the first station without stopping. The platform was there and gone in a blur, but something was off about it. It looked abandoned, covered in shadows that seemed to move. "Excuse me," I called out, my voice sounding muffled in the stale air. "I needed that stop." The old man's newspaper lowered, revealing nothing. Just empty space where a face should be. The newspaper fell to the floor, but the suit remained upright, filled with something that wasn't quite human-shaped anymore. I bolted for the door between cars, my heart pounding. Think, Raquel, think. 3 years of night shifts had taught me to keep my cool in emergencies. The door wouldn't budge. I looked through its window into the next car and immediately wished I hadn't. The seats were covered in something that looked like black mold, but it was moving, pulsing, reaching toward my car. A laugh came from behind me, soft, wet, and completely wrong. The empty suit was standing now, its shoulders bubbling and shifting like boiling tar. I ran to the other end of the car, trying the emergency exit. Nothing. The windows? Solid as concrete. My watch still read 11:58 p.m. The lights began to flicker, matching the rhythm I'd seen at the station. With each flash, the suit thing got closer, even though I never saw it move. Flash, it was by its original seat. Flash, halfway down the aisle. Flash, 3 rows away. I fumbled in my scrab's pocket, pulling out the small bottle of hand sanitizer I always carried. The chemistry classes I'd dozed through in nursing school suddenly became very relevant. Hand sanitizer, 70% ethanol, highly flammable. Flash, 2 rows away. Its suit was rippling, revealing glimpses of something dark and writhing underneath. I pulled out my lighter, a guilty reminder of the smoking habit I'd quit last year, and waited. The thing that wasn't a man tilted its empty collar at me, curious. "I've seen worse things in the ER," I said, surprising myself with how steady my voice was. The lighter sparked. "Way worse." Flash 1 row away. I could smell it now, like old meat and stagnant water. I sprayed the sanitizer in an arc, flicked the lighter, and the air between us erupted in blue flames. The thing screeched, a sound like metal grinding on metal, like all the train brakes in the world screaming at once. The flames caught its suit, and it thrashed, revealing more of what lurked inside. Darkness given form, tentacles of void, eyes that weren't eyes. The fire alarm started blaring. Real fire, real alarm, real rules. The emergency exits clicked and opened. I didn't wait to see what happened to the creature. I pulled the emergency door release and jumped onto the tracks. I ran through the tunnel, guided by emergency lights, my shoes slapping against the rails. Behind me, I heard that screech again, more distant now, followed by the sound of twisting metal. I ran until I found an emergency exit to the surface, burst out into the night air, and didn't stop until I reached a lit street. My phone came back to life, buzzing with missed notifications. The time? 11:59 p.m. 1 minute. It had all happened in 1 minute. I called a rideshare home that night, and every night since. I've looked up the train line's history. The accidents, the disappearances, the maintenance workers who quit without notice. I've tried to file reports, but who would believe me? Sometimes I lie awake at night wondering about that empty suit, about the thing inside it. But mostly, I wonder about the other passengers who must have come before me. The ones who didn't have a lighter, or who weren't quick enough, or who didn't notice the warning signs. I still work the night shift at the hospital. I've seen plenty of strange things there, things that medicine can't explain, but nothing like what I saw on that train. And every night at 11:58, I make sure I'm far away from any station, any tracks, any trains. Because I know it's still out there, riding the last train home, waiting for the next passenger who's too tired to notice that the lights are flickering wrong. I'm a sleepwalker, but the mud on my feet isn't the scariest thing I'm bringing home anymore. I never thought I'd be afraid of my own bedroom. But here I am, at 3 a.m., staring at my rumpled sheets while my heart threatens to jump out of my chest. There's mud caked on my bare feet again, and my pajama bottoms are damp up to the knees. The worst part? I have absolutely no memory of how they got that way. My name is Matthew Castro, and I've been a sleepwalker for as long as I can remember. My mom used to tell stories about finding 4-year-old me reorganizing the kitchen cabinets in my sleep. Back then, it was almost cute. Now, at 28, there's nothing cute about waking up in strange places with no idea how you got there. It started getting worse after Dad died last year. The stress of inheriting his real estate business while dealing with grief sent my already fragile sleep patterns into chaos. My therapist, Dr. Angela Cruz, says it's a normal response to trauma, but there's nothing normal about what's been happening lately. 3 weeks ago, I installed security cameras in my apartment, not to catch burglars, to catch myself. I needed to know what I was doing during these episodes. The first few nights were boring, just me wandering aimlessly around my living room, occasionally trying to cook with invisible ingredients. Then came last Tuesday. The footage showed me leaving my apartment at 2:13 a.m. I was gone for 2 hours. When I watched myself return, something was different. My movements were more deliberate, almost predatory, and there was something dark staining the front of my white sleep shirt. I deleted the footage immediately. I told myself it was probably just mud or dirt from the park nearby. But deep down, I knew I was lying to myself. The next morning, I saw the news about the break-in at the Wilson house 3 blocks away. Nothing was stolen, but Mrs. Wilson, a sweet elderly lady who used to give me cookies when I was a kid, was in the hospital. She'd been found at the bottom of her stairs with a nasty head injury. She couldn't remember what happened. I started taking sleeping pills after that. Strong ones, the kind that's supposed to knock you out completely. But somehow I still kept waking up with evidence of my nighttime wanderings. Dirt under my fingernails, scratches on my arms. Once, even a small key I'd never seen before in my pocket. Dr. Cruz noticed the changes in me during our weekly sessions. "Matthew, you look exhausted," she said yesterday, genuine concern in her dark eyes. "Are you still keeping that sleep journal I recommended?" I lied and said yes. How could I tell her that I was terrified of what I might write in it? That I was starting to think my sleepwalking self was more than just an unconscious version of me? That sometimes, in the moments between sleeping and waking, I caught glimpses of memories that couldn't possibly be mine, of open windows, of dark hallways, of sleeping faces. Last night was the final straw. I woke up sitting at my kitchen table, fully dressed in clothes I didn't recognize. There was a wallet in front of me that wasn't mine, and a smartphone I'd never seen before. The phone was locked, but the wallpaper showed a happy family, mother, father, 2 kids. The father's face had been scratched out. I threw everything in a garbage bag and drove to the nearest dumpster. On my way back, I passed a police car heading toward the wealthy part of town, lights flashing but sirens off. Something in my gut twisted. So now I'm sitting here writing this all down because I don't know what else to do. I've taped my doors and windows shut. I've swallowed enough sleeping pills to drop a horse. But I can feel myself getting drowsy, and I'm terrified because I'm starting to realize something. Maybe I'm not just a sleepwalker. Maybe something else has been walking around in my skin while I sleep. And maybe, just maybe, it's getting stronger. I can hear footsteps in the hallway outside my apartment. They're getting closer, and they sound just like mine, but I'm sitting right here. Aren't I? I called Roadside Assistance last night. They arrived in exactly 3 minutes. I wish I had kept driving on my flat tire. 3 minutes. That's how fast they came. Not a second more, not a second less. If you've ever been stranded on a rural highway, you know that's impossible. Even in the heart of Manhattan, you'd be lucky to get help that quickly. But there I was on Route 43, 30 miles from the nearest town, watching a tow truck materialize out of the darkness exactly 180 seconds after I hung up the phone. My name is Chris Hobb, and I'm writing this because someone needs to know what happened that night. Maybe it'll serve as a warning to others, or maybe it'll help explain my disappearance if you're reading this after I'm gone. It started with a flat tire, simple enough, right? I was driving back from visiting my sister in Columbus, taking the back roads because I thought it would be more scenic. Stupid decision number one. The sun had just set, and that mid-October chill was creeping in through my thin jacket. I'd heard the thump, thump, thump for a few minutes before finally pulling over, hoping it was just road noise. It wasn't. I got out to check the damage, phone, flashlight in hand. The tire wasn't just flat, it was shredded, like something had deliberately torn it apart. But that wasn't even the weirdest part. There were these strange marks around the tear, almost like teeth marks. I shook my head, telling myself I was being paranoid. Tire damage can look weird, especially in poor lighting. I pulled out my phone to call AAA, but of course, I'd let my membership lapse last month. Stupid decision number two. A quick Google search brought up 24/7 emergency roadside solutions. They had 5 stars and a green Open Now badge. The website looked professional enough, and I was desperate. The call connected immediately. No rings, no hold music, just an immediate answer. 24/7 emergency roadside solutions. Where are you stranded? The voice was oddly monotone, neither male nor female, but I was too relieved to care. Yeah, hi. I'm on Route 43, about 30 miles east of Warren. I have a flat tire, and... We know your location. A truck will arrive in 3 minutes. Please remain in your vehicle with the doors locked until you see our lights. Do not exit your vehicle for any reason. Our standard fee is 1 personal item of significant value. Before I could ask what they meant by personal item, the call ended. I checked my phone, no record of the call in my history. A shiver ran down my spine that had nothing to do with the cold. 3 minutes, I counted every second, trying to distract myself from the growing unease. The silence was oppressive. No crickets, no distant traffic, not even the rustle of leaves in the trees that lined the road. Just complete, absolute silence. At exactly the 3-minute mark, lights appeared in my rearview mirror. The tow truck was ancient, a rusted behemoth that looked like it belonged in a junkyard. Its headlights cast a sickly yellow glow that seemed to distort everything it touched. The company logo on the door was familiar from the website, but something about it seemed wrong, like it was writhing slightly when I wasn't looking directly at it. The driver stepped out, and my heart nearly stopped. They were wearing what looked like standard mechanic coveralls, but the fabric seemed to shift and ripple in impossible ways. The name tag read, "Services Provider," in block letters. Their face. I couldn't focus on their face. Every time I tried, my vision would blur and my head would start pounding.
Payment first,
the figure said in that same monotone voice from the phone.
One personal item of significant value.
I have cash, I stammered, reaching for my wallet.
Not currency. Value is not measured in dollars. Something personal, something precious, something that defines you.
That's when I noticed a collection hanging from the truck's mirror. A wedding ring, a military dog tag, a locket with a photo visible through its cracked glass, a baby shoe, bronzed and tarnished, each item gently swaying despite the complete absence of wind. I don't understand, I said, my voice trembling. What do you want? The figure tilted its head at an impossible angle.
Your sister's final voicemail. The one you've kept for 3 years, 11 months, and 26 days. The one you listen to every night before bed. That will suffice.
My blood ran cold. How did they know about that? About Rachel's last message before the accident? I never told anyone about that, not even my therapist. No, I whispered. I can't. That's all I have left of her.
Then remain stranded. But be warned, we are not the only ones who offer assistance on this road. And the others, they take much more than memories.
As if on cue, I heard something moving in the darkness beyond the truck's sickly lights. Something big, something hungry. I made my choice. 10 minutes later, I was driving home on a perfectly repaired tire. My phone's voicemail storage showed one less saved message. I've tried to convince myself it was just a nightmare, a hallucination brought on by stress and exhaustion. But every night since then, when I reach for my phone to play Rachel's message, I swear I can hear that monotone voice whisper. Thank you for choosing 24/7 Emergency Roadside Solutions. I've searched for the company since that night. The website doesn't exist anymore. The phone number is disconnected. But sometimes, when I'm driving late at night, I see their trucks in my rearview mirror, collecting payments from other stranded souls. And sometimes, in my darkest moments, I wonder if I made the right choice. Because ever since that night, I've been forgetting things about Rachel. The sound of her laugh, the way she'd scrunch her nose when she smiled, the exact words of comfort she spoke in that final message. I think they took more than just the voicemail, and I'm terrified to find out what else I might lose. So please, if you're ever stranded on Route 43, don't call for help. Keep driving on your flat tire. Walk if you have to. Because whatever you think you're willing to pay for rescue, trust me, the price is always higher than you think. I'm a night photographer in Seattle. Something's been appearing in my photos, and now my friend is missing. The thing about night photography is that you're supposed to capture what's already there. The neon signs, the street lamps casting long shadows, maybe some cars creating light trails if you're into that sort of thing. But what I captured that night wasn't supposed to be there at all. And now, I can't stop seeing them, even when I lower my camera. I've always been drawn to the quiet solitude of nighttime shoots. There's something peaceful about wandering the empty streets of downtown Seattle at 2 a.m., with just my Canon R5 and tripod for company. My Instagram followers seem to love the moody aesthetic, and I've even managed to sell a few prints to local galleries. But everything changed 3 weeks ago when I was shooting near Pike Place Market. The first strange photo was probably an accident, at least that's what I told myself. I was taking long exposures of the market's iconic sign, playing with different angles when I noticed something odd in my viewfinder. At first, I thought it was lens flare or maybe some weird artifact from the light bouncing off the wet pavement. But when I checked the image preview, my blood ran cold. Standing beneath the sign was a figure. Not a person, exactly. More like a void in the shape of a person, darker than the surrounding night. The strange part wasn't just its appearance. It was the fact that I knew with absolute certainty that there had been nobody there when I took the shot. My friend Ramil, another local photographer I often run into during night shoots, was the first person I showed the photo to. He's been shooting longer than I have and knows every technical quirk that can cause strange effects in digital photography. "Dude, Rosie, this is different," he said, zooming in on my camera's LCD screen. "Could be sensor noise, but I've never seen it cluster like this. Take another one?" I did, from the same spot. The figure was gone, but there was something else now. What looked like long, spindly fingers reaching down from the top of the frame. We both pretended not to see it. The next few nights, I couldn't stay away. I told myself I was just being thorough, documenting a weird technical glitch to post about on photography forums. But deep down, I knew I was looking for more of them. And I found them. Oh God, did I find them. They started appearing in more of my shots, not just at Pike Place, but all over downtown. Always in places that were empty to my naked eye, but when viewed through my photos, they were occupied. The figures varied, some tall and stretched, others hunched and bulbous. Some seemed to be looking directly at my camera, while others appeared to be going about their own incomprehensible business. I created a private Instagram account to document them, carefully noting the location and time of each appearance. That's how I started noticing the patterns. They were more numerous near older buildings. They seemed to avoid brightly lit areas, and they were getting closer to my camera with each shot. Last week, Ramil stopped answering my texts. When I went by his apartment, his roommate said he hadn't come home for 2 days. The last time anyone had seen him was during a night shoot near Pioneer Square. I found his camera there, wedged between 2 dumpsters. The memory card was still intact. Most of the photos were normal, Ramil's usual stellar composition of urban architecture. But the last few images, I still can't get them out of my head. The figures were no longer just standing there. They were reaching for him, surrounding him, and in the final shot, taken at a weird angle like the camera had been dropped, one of them was touching his shoulder. I should have deleted all the photos, sold my camera, moved to somewhere with bright, eternal sunshine. But I couldn't. Because in that last set of photos, I saw something else. Behind the figure touching Ramil, barely visible in the darkness, was a doorway that doesn't exist in Pioneer Square during daylight. And through that doorway, I saw him. Ramil. Looking back at the camera, trying to tell me something. That's why I'm writing this now, because I'm going back tonight with my camera. I think I've figured out how to find the doorway. It's all about the right combination of exposure time and ISO, creating a lens through which their world bleeds into ours. Ramil didn't have all the pieces, but I do now. If I don't post an update by tomorrow morning, please, whatever you do, don't come looking for me. And if you're a photographer who shoots at night, check your photos carefully. If you start seeing them, stop immediately. Unlike me, you still have that choice. But if you do see them, and you're reading this, know that you're not crazy. They've always been there, hiding in the spaces between moments, in the darkness between streetlights. We just never had the right tools to see them before. I have to go now. The sun is setting, and I need to get my camera ready. Ramil is waiting. Update. I found another photo on my memory card this morning. I don't remember taking it. It shows me typing this very post. but I'm not alone in the shot. There's something standing behind me, looking over my shoulder as I write. I can feel it there now, even though I'm too afraid to turn around. My camera is the only thing that can see it, but somehow, I think it's been watching us all along. These stories remind us that the dead of night hides more than just shadows. If you want more tales that'll keep you up at night, don't forget to like this video, share it with a fellow night owl, and subscribe for more chilling horrors. I'm Bon, and until next time, stay curious and stay safe. Good night.